Chairman, thank you very much. I'm pleased to yield 2 minutes to the gentleman from Iowa, Mr. King.
The gentleman from Iowa is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I thank the gentleman from Washington for yielding and for leading on this issue. I would just want to add to this discussion and deliberation that what really happens here is that if this should pass today, and I rise in opposition to H.R. 2499, Mr. Chairman, but it sets up a momentum and sets up a level of expectations, and the sequence of events being the question that would go before the Puerto Ricans and those who were born in Puerto Rico that would live in any of the other 50 states, presumably, do you want to stay the same or do you want to change? And once that decision is made, then there is no going back. The momentum then washes over the dam, and the next question that comes back is, now you can't be what you were before. Now you have to decide between being an independent country or a free association, whatever that might be, or statehood. And when we get to this question of statehood, and I look at the standards that have been there in the past, I disagree with Mr. Young from Alaska. I can go up there, and English is a language that's used in government and in business and everywhere you go. Yes, every language you can imagine is spoken in every state, but the practice in Puerto Rico is Spanish, not English. 85% of Puerto Ricans will self-profess that they're not proficient in English. They have very little understanding of English. And in fact, I'd ask unanimous consent to introduce into the record the Latin American Herald Tribune, dated April 26, where the Secretary of Education in Puerto Rico, the Governor's Secretary, said English is taught in Puerto Rico as if it were a foreign language, and 85% aren't proficient in it. I ask unanimous consent on that.
The gentleman's request will be determined by general rule.
Okay, and then it also seek to introduce into the record a letter from U.S. English Incorporated. Among it is a statement I think that's very important to consider here in this body, which says, no state has ever been allowed to come into the Union where its core organs of government operate in a foreign language, and Puerto Rico must not be an exception. And Mr. Chairman, it points out that Arizona, New Mexico, and Oklahoma had those conditions as conditions coming into statehood.
The gentleman's request will again be considered by general rule.
And I thank the chairman, and I just would make this point that I wouldn't rise here today and take this position here today if, since 1917, or even the last 50 years, if the practice of education and government in Puerto Rico had been the unifying common language, we would be unified as a people. Let's start that path and have this discussion in a generation, and I would yield back.
Time of the gentleman has expired. Who seeks recognition?